Every second you watch this, an invisible parasite is silently draining your bank account. The system isn't broken. It's a meticulously managed slaughterhouse designed to keep you exhausted and trapped. Discover the elite's darkest financial secret before the coming collapse erases everything you own. Look at your hands. Look at the money you hold, the digits sitting quietly in your bank account, the savings you have traded your youth, your sweat, and your sanity to build. What if I told you that in this very second, an invisible, relentless parasite is draining the lifeblood out of everything you own? You can feel it, can't you? That creeping, suffocating dread whispering in the back of your mind that no matter how fast you run, the ground is crumbling beneath your feet. You look around at the skyrocketing prices at the grocery store, the venomous tribal rage spilling into our streets, the deafening war drums echoing between superpowers, and you think the world has simply gone mad. It hasn't. You are not witnessing a temporary glitch in the system. You are standing at ground zero of a mathematically guaranteed demolition, an orchestrated unraveling of a global architecture that has finally run out of borrowed time. Before we dive deeper into the abyss of our financial reality, at MoneyGlowUp02 warmly welcomes you. If you want to acquire the map to survive the catastrophic storm that is already upon us, please hit that subscribe button right now to support us and fuel our motivation to keep bringing you these vital, unfiltered truths. To decode the brutal slaughter of the present, we must ruthlessly dissect the ghosts of the past. We must travel back to 1971, the year the global financial system underwent a permanent, fatal mutation. Picture the United States, staggering under the astronomical, bloody costs of the Vietnam War and sprawling domestic promises it could not keep. The nation's gold vaults were bleeding dry. European nations, smelling the rot of American insolvency, were aggressively demanding physical gold in exchange for their paper dollars. The empire was staring down the barrel of a humiliating sovereign default. In a moment of sheer desperation, President Richard Nixon executed a maneuver that fundamentally severed our reality from finance. With the stroke of a pen, he murdered the Bretton Woods Agreement, entirely removing the dollar from the gold standard. In that split second, money ceased to be real. It became a pure illusion, backed by absolutely nothing but the military might and the hollow promises of a deeply indebted government. The world held its breath. Pundits and terrified investors braced for an apocalyptic market collapse, absolutely certain that a currency unmoored from intrinsic value would trigger instant economic devastation. But they were dead wrong. The market didn't collapse. It surged with a violent, unnatural euphoria. The masses stood paralyzed, completely bewildered by the paradox of a rotting economy producing a booming stock market. This brings us to the ultimate bitter pill you must force down your throat if you want to survive: the illusion of nominal wealth. When you study the wreckage of 1933, 1971, 2008, and the pandemic panic of 2020, a singular, terrifying law of nature emerges. When the foundation of the empire threatens to cave in, the masters of the system have only one mechanism of survival: they print. They hook a dying economy up to financial oxygen tanks, injecting trillions of fabricated dollars into the veins of the system. What happens next is inescapable. Your currency is violently debased. Inflation eats away your survival. But the nominal price of hard assets, like stocks, gold, and prime real estate, explodes upward into the stratosphere. Listen to me very carefully. You are not getting richer. Your money is simply becoming worthless. The stock market rallies you blindly cheer for during these periods of crisis are nothing more than the real-time reflection of the dollar's accelerating decay. History is not a fairy tale of endless growth. It is a cold, cyclical, ruthless machine. When central planners engineer these financial illusions to mask their own structural bankruptcy, they detonate the purchasing power of the working class while hyperinflating the fortresses of the elite. You are trapped in a lethal game of Jenga, and the chilling truth they will never tell you is that the foundation blocks were pulled out from under us decades ago. Relics. To understand exactly how those foundation blocks were removed without you ever noticing, we must examine the silent, invisible theft that happens every time the money printers are turned on. There is a dark, centuries-old economic principle that the financial elite pray you never discover. A mechanism so exquisitely cruel that it has managed to fund the lavish empires of the few by quietly siphoning the life energy of the many. It is called the Cantillon effect, named after the 18th century banker Richard Cantillon, who noticed a devastatingly simple truth about fiat currency. When a central bank creates new money out of thin air, that money does not rain down equally upon the masses. It enters the economy at very specific, highly guarded access points. It flows first into the hands of the megabanks, the multinational corporations, and the politically connected elite. Because they receive this fresh capital before prices have adjusted to the new, expanded money supply, they get to purchase assets, real estate, land, equities, at yesterday's cheap prices. They gorge themselves at a banquet of artificially suppressed costs. But by the time that newly printed money trickles down through the arteries of the economy and finally reaches your paycheck, the damage is already done. The currency has been diluted. The cost of housing, energy, and food has already skyrocketed. You are left holding a hollowed-out dollar, paying tomorrow's inflated prices with today's stagnant wages. It is a brilliant, diabolical reverse Robin Hood scheme, executed flawlessly in plain sight. Think about what this actually means for your life. When you clock in for a 40-hour work week, you are not just trading your labor. You are trading your most finite, irreplaceable resource, your time. You are trading time away from your children, time away from your passions, time that you will never, ever get back, all in exchange for a piece of paper that is designed by mathematical certainty to lose its value. You are storing your precious life energy in a leaking bucket. This is why you feel so exhausted. This is why you feel like you are running a marathon on a treadmill that keeps speeding up. The system is not broken. It is functioning exactly as it was designed to function. It is designed to keep you perpetually stressed, constantly working, and desperately dependent on credit just to maintain a basic standard of living. It strips away your autonomy and replaces it with a heavy, invisible yoke of debt. They have engineered a modern-day feudalism, where the serfs no longer work the land, but instead toil away for a currency that is silently confiscated from their pockets before they even have a chance to spend it. Yet this systemic theft could never be sustained if the architects did not convince the masses that the boom and bust cycles destroying their lives were somehow natural phenomena. We are indoctrinated from an early age to believe that the economy breathes in and out like a living organism, that recessions and depressions are simply the weather patterns of the financial world, unpredictable, unfortunate, but entirely natural. This is perhaps the most insidious lie ever sold to the public. There is nothing natural about the violent economic whiplash we have endured over the last 3 decades. The catastrophic dot-com crash, the agonizing devastation of the 2008 Great Financial Crisis, the hysterical everything bubble of the 2020 pandemic era. These were not acts of God. They were acts of policy, They were the direct, undeniable consequences of central bankers playing God with the cost of capital. When the Federal Reserve artificially suppresses interest rates down to zero, they are flooding the system with cheap debt. They are heavily intoxicating the markets, punishing anyone who dares to save money and rewarding the most reckless, highly leveraged gamblers on Wall Street. This cheap debt acts like financial steroids, pumping up the prices of every conceivable asset and creating a euphoric, glittering illusion of prosperity. The middle class, desperate to keep up, takes out massive mortgages they cannot afford and loads up on credit card debt just to participate in the boom. But steroids eventually destroy the host. When inflation finally rears its ugly head, as it always mathematically must, the central planners are forced to slam on the brakes. They aggressively hike interest rates, pulling the liquidity out of the market. The resulting crash is not a tragic accident. It is a meticulously scheduled harvest season for the ultra-wealthy. When the bubble bursts, the working class is slaughtered. Millions lose their jobs, their pensions evaporate, and their homes are foreclosed upon. But what happens to the architects of the crisis? The megabanks that packaged the toxic debt, the hedge funds that gambled away the nation's future. They are declared too big to fail. They are rescued with trillions of dollars in taxpayer-funded bailouts. They are handed the very money you will spend the rest of your life paying back through taxation and inflation. And with that bailout money, they swoop into the smoldering wreckage of the economy and buy up foreclosed homes and distressed assets for pennies on the dollar. They privatize all the profits during the boom, and they socialize all the catastrophic losses during the bust, dumping the entire bill squarely onto the shoulders of the working class. You are not a participant in a free market. You are livestock in a managed slaughterhouse. But history proves that no empire can harvest its own people indefinitely without triggering a fatal, catastrophic revolt from the rest of the world. For over half a century, the United States has held the ultimate geopolitical cheat code, the status of the global reserve currency. Because the rest of the world was forced to use the US dollar to trade oil and essential commodities, America could print trillions of dollars out of thin air to fund its endless wars, its massive welfare state, and its skyrocketing deficits, essentially exporting its inflation to poorer nations. We were able to consume far more than we produced because the rest of the globe was subsidizing our reckless gluttony. But the world is finally waking up from the spell. We are currently witnessing a seismic geopolitical earthquake, a tectonic shift that will violently alter the standard of living for every single person living within the borders of the Western Empire. The weaponization of the US dollar has become the catalyst for its own demise. When the Western financial cartel began seizing the sovereign reserves of foreign nations and cutting off entire countries from the SWIFT payment network, they crossed a point of no return. They signaled to every nation on Earth that their wealth, their security, and their autonomy were only permitted at the mercy of Washington. The reaction was immediate, silent, and deadly. A formidable coalition of nations, led by the BRICS alliance, is now aggressively executing a master plan to de-dollarize the global economy. They are establishing bilateral trade agreements in their own local currencies. They are building alternative, sanction-proof financial infrastructures. And most terrifyingly for the fiat empire, they are draining the Western vaults of physical gold at a record-shattering pace, repatriating their sovereign wealth to prepare for a new, commodity-backed financial order. The petrodollar is dying, gasping its final breaths on the world stage. And this is the terrifying reality you must face. When the global demand for the dollar inevitably collapses, those trillions of printed, exported dollars will have nowhere to go but home. They will come flooding back onto our shores like a hyperinflationary tsunami. The exorbitant privilege we have enjoyed for decades will suddenly become an unbearable curse. We will no longer be able to print our way out of our astronomical debt. The cost of imported goods will skyrocket beyond comprehension, and the artificial standard of living we have taken for granted will collapse inward. We are approaching the terminal phase of the debt supercycle, a chaotic transition period where the old world burns and the new world has not yet been born. Staring down the barrel of this unprecedented global unwinding, the only question that remains is what you will do to shield your family from the impending wreckage. Hope is not a financial strategy, and waiting for the very politicians and central bankers who engineered this disaster to somehow save you is a guaranteed suicide pact. They will not save you. When the currency completely fractures, they will attempt to lock you into an even more dystopian prison: central bank digital currencies, where your purchasing power is perfectly monitored, programmed, and restricted based on your compliance. To survive the coming storm, you must completely, radically rewire your understanding of value. You must stop thinking in terms of paper currency and start thinking in terms of scarcity, utility, and absolute ownership. The survival blueprint is brutal, but simple. You must aggressively separate your labor and your wealth from the state's fiat currency. You must step off the sinking ship of paper money and secure your seat in the lifeboats of hard, unprintable assets. Physical gold and silver have stood for 5,000 years as the ultimate, incorruptible monetary anchors, preserving purchasing power through the collapse of every fiat empire in human history. Prime real estate and productive land offer tangible refuge against the erosion of capital. And for the first time in human history, we have an apex predator of money: Bitcoin, an absolutely scarce, decentralized digital property that cannot be inflated, confiscated, or controlled by any government or central bank on Earth. Acquiring these assets is no longer about getting rich. It is about not getting erased. It is about building a financial fortress around yourself and your loved ones so that when the fiat illusion finally shatters, you are holding something real. This requires immense discipline. It requires you to cut away the frivolous consumption that keeps you trapped in the rat race and ruthlessly convert your dying fiat into lasting, generation-spanning wealth. You are living through a definitive turning point in human history, a moment that will be studied in textbooks centuries from now. The greatest wealth transfer the world has ever seen is already in motion. The system is going to collapse under the weight of its own mathematical impossibilities, and on the other side of that collapse, society will be cleanly divided into two distinct classes: those who held paper and those who held hard assets. The window of opportunity to position yourself is rapidly closing. Do not look away. Do not let normalcy bias lull you back to sleep. You know the truth now. You feel the ground shaking. The fire is coming. Gather your resources, fortify your mind, and take absolute control of your financial destiny before the decision is made for you. The storm is here, but the power to weather it is yours. The modern financial system is not broken. It is functioning exactly as intended, as a relentless, invisible engine designed to transfer wealth from the working class to the financial elite. Through the Cantillon effect, central banks silently confiscate your time and life energy by diluting the purchasing power of fiat currency, forcing you to run a never-ending treadmill of debt and inflation. This systemic theft is camouflaged by engineered cycles of boom and bust, where the ultra-wealthy privatize profits during the euphoric highs and socialize their catastrophic losses onto the public during the crashes. Now, as the global reserve status of the US dollar faces an unprecedented rebellion from nations seeking to de-dollarize and repatriate real wealth, the American economy stands on the precipice of a hyperinflationary reckoning. The decades of exporting inflation and relying on astronomical debt are violently coming to an end. In the face of this mathematically inevitable collapse, passive reliance on the architects of this disaster is financial suicide. The ultimate takeaway is that you must ruthlessly and urgently decouple your wealth from the dying fiat system. The impending wealth transfer will brutally divide society into two camps: those left holding worthless paper and those who secured their future with unprintable, decentralized, hard assets. The time to build your financial fortress is right now, before the final lifeboat departs. The most profound lesson to draw from this is that true wealth is measured in scarcity, autonomy, and time, not in fiat currency. Storing your irreplaceable life energy in a money system designed to depreciate is a guaranteed path to financial servitude. To apply this to your life today, you must immediately shift your mindset from a passive consumer to an active owner. Conduct a ruthless audit of your finances, eliminate frivolous spending, and stop treating fiat cash as a long-term store of value. Instead, continuously convert your excess paper currency into hard, tangible assets that cannot be printed by a central bank, such as physical gold, silver, productive real estate, or Bitcoin. Build your financial fortress by minimizing unnecessary debt, taking self-custody of your wealth, and securing absolute control over your own purchasing power before the window of opportunity closes. Which hard asset, gold, silver, real estate, or Bitcoin, do you trust the most to protect your family's wealth, and why? Please take a moment to share your perspective in the comments below so our community can discuss and learn from one another. If you found value in this deep dive, please subscribe to the channel. Your support is what gives us the motivation to keep exposing the truth and producing more hard-hitting content just like this.